Police, fire, EMS representatives, and Commissioner Volrath sat in that position. So our goals were to determine what we needed as far as infrastructure to provide this service out into the field. This is a pretty standard service across the nation that is available to police, fire, and EMS to be able to have access to the computer-aided dispatch system and see statuses, call information, all of that. I'll talk about that further. But our goals were also to determine the lines of support between the county and what would be the responsibility of the agency, how to fund it, excuse me, how many licenses we needed, and then what were the options. Just because we are visual people, we wanted to share with you an image of what the system looks like in the dispatch center. So you can see our 911 call queue on the left. On the right, you'll see our pending and dispatch calls and unit status panels there. We track the different units. Thank you. How we track the different units and the calls. And then on the bottom left is a call for service screen itself, where that's where all the notes go in and all the call information. This is the mobile version in the law enforcement terminals, the computer terminals in their vehicles. So they've got a status panel there with units and calls. They've also got a map for routing potential, and it's really small, but you can see also a patrol vehicle that shows up on that map. So they can track the units with the automatic vehicle location as well. There are other features too with the different screens. You can see that taskbar at the top. They have a number of different options. And back up just a second. Today, the Sheriff's Department, Niles City Police both have access to the current capacity in this, but none of the other police agencies do. Then this is the newer feature. The mobility application would be on tablets and on cell phones. This could also be used by law enforcement. And we're really looking at this to be the primary source for the fire departments and for EMS, because this is the type of equipment that they use with tablets versus law enforcement has the computer terminal right in their car. So very similar capabilities here, but it's in a mobile version. They've got routing, they've got pre-plans, call for service information. They can change their status. I'll talk about those things a little bit more. So why is this really important? Ultimately, the most driving factor of this is safety. Unit locations, knowing where the units are, where each other are when they're in the field, the ability to see the CAD narrative, the notes in there, any alerts that might be on the location, whether it's a key location, prior interactions with people at that location, safety things. And then we've also got an emergency alert feature within CAD. So they have that feature on their radio. They also have it in CAD. So they can push a button there that creates an alert for all of the units that are in the CAD system, dispatch, and the field. And they can see those call lists. So have situational awareness of what's going on. If it's very busy, they can see other calls that are pending as well. Or if they're partners on something, they call out needing help. They already know where they are and they can start that way. They can self-initiate some of those backup situations. Again, with status tracking, especially when we're very busy, might be a storm event or just a busy summer day. If the radio is congested, they can self-initiate calls. They can also change their statuses. We don't want to silent dispatch things. We always ask the field units to still communicate on the radio whenever possible, right? Because that creates greater situational awareness for everyone. And it draws attention to things that are changing instead of those silent changes. But when that's not available, they do have the option to do those things. Also with the auto updates with geofencing. So it's like this invisible geofence, right? So this is particularly helpful with fire service. So when they leave the station, it will automatically put them en route. When they get to the scene, again, it will do this geofence around the incident scene and will automatically put them on scene. That's especially helpful for the second, third, fourth truck that are arriving on scene. They don't necessarily need to call out on the radio. They can have that update in the CAD system that also makes other responders aware. Like we've got Chief Myers here, he's on the committee from Berrien Springs Fire. And then, sorry, I forgot to introduce you guys right up front. We've also got Chief Smigelski from Coloma PD here as well, also on the committee for the law enforcement side. I've talked about congested radio reduces some of that radio traffic in ways that don't decrease safety as well. So it decreases questions. We often will get, what was that address? What was that person's name? What was that description again? If they can see the notes, they've got that information when they need it. It also allows us to say, like with the sheriff's department, hey, I've sent a name and number through to your screen, and they can then gather that information. It keeps some of that sensitive information off of the radio as well. But I've already talked about the only lead truck going en route. I mentioned the mapping and routing capabilities that are available. Right now, a lot of, especially fire and EMS, they use Active 911 or I Am Responding, these other applications that we send information to, but it's not an interface. It's not a two-way talking system. It's a one-time push, and they use different mapping. Generally, they use Google mapping, whereas we have the county's authoritative maps. And sometimes the information that gets pushed through, Google doesn't know what to do with it. And so it maps them and sends them to the wrong location. We've found that in a number of instances. So this would mean that everybody is on the same mapping system, on the county's authoritative mapping. They're going to the right location and getting the information that they need. There's also the capability for notifications. So be on the lookout messages. For instance, a stolen vehicle or a missing person, even if it happened the shift before you, it'll bring up a toast message, so a pop-up message to provide you with that information. That provides greater safety and situational awareness for the officers and individuals, but also then allows them to look for those things and resolve those incidents faster as well. There's also secure messaging through the CAD system between field responders and with dispatch. So that's helpful as well. We know it's secure versus some text messages through cell phones or anything like that. And then we have the capability to have attachments in there. A big one that we use is for law enforcement notifications we receive from CPS and APS, that we can add those in there. Allows us to track it, allows them to see it. We can also add photos, like I mentioned with the be on the lookout messages. And then they can actually attach files that we can see as well for things like entries of stolen vehicles, missing persons, etc. So we don't have to necessarily go through email, and everything is all in one place, packaged up. Then it comes to cost, right? So we're looking at this countywide, making it available to everybody. So there are software costs, licensing on our vendor side. And you'll see we've got it split up between law enforcement and fire EMS. And that's because law enforcement is using that mobile data terminal. They'll also have access to the mobility applications through that site license. And then fire EMS is just using the mobility application. So with law enforcement, they require county services as well for secure VPN. And Chris can talk to that much more expansively than I can. But they have to meet all the CJIS requirements, right? That connection has to be robust. It has to be secure. Then going forward for all of the sites, including what we do now, we all have maintenance fees that we have to have for support and to maintain the system. So that would be included from year 2 on, and that would be the responsibility of the agencies as split up as appropriate, right? And then on the mobility side, in order to make that work, we also have an annual hosting fee. Dispatch will manage that. We actually already have that approved in our budget to have that $3,000 mobility hosting fee. So you'll see the totals there. On the law enforcement side, the year 1 total estimate is just over $503,000. And on the fire EMS, $96,400 for year 1. And so that total wise, and I mentioned for Chris too, on the county services, we also have personnel needs in order to support all of this. So the total project funding that we're seeking, that the agencies are seeking assistance with, is at $596,650. You see down there at the bottom. There is a resolution in support of the project and in creating MOUs, right, for each of the agencies that sets out those parameters as to how this will work, what they're responsible for, what the county's responsible for. That will go through admin committee for discussion and approval. Chris, is there anything that you'd like to add that I may not have touched on?
I think you did a really good job of summing up, you know, what's needed here. This has been talked for a very long time. So just to reiterate, with the law enforcement side, it's a more complex connection because we're utilizing direct VPN services to connect into the county's CAD servers. So we have to make sure that that connection is reliable, robust, and secure, right? So that we're protecting not only their endpoints, but our endpoints as well, and not introducing unknown things into our systems. So there's cost of software to implement that, and plus the staff to maintain it. Additionally, we have to have staff. Although, you know, the agencies will be providing technical support on their end, there's things that we're going to still get asked questions for. There's still things that have to be entered into the system, maintained during times of updates are complicated. There's a lot of staff involvement in. The last update, we had staff dedicated for multiple days just supporting us and Niles. So we're talking about adding 20 agencies on the law enforcement side, plus multiple fire agencies as well. So there's a lot more involved that's going to be put on the IS department to help support this. The fire EMS is not as robust because they're connecting to the cloud to Tyler's services. All we're doing is feeding the data up to the cloud, and because they're using the mobility app, they're going to be able to connect to that cloud directly. Some support issues will be dependent upon Tyler to fix, other things that we'll be able to help resolve.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, and thank you for mentioning the total number of agencies. So in the county, we'd have 50 agencies total that we'd be connecting to CAD through this service. So you'd have 20 on the law enforcement side and then 30 on the fire and EMS side. We have a lot of small agencies, and so it's quite expansive in the number. One of the ways that we've been meeting with various legislators as well to discuss is to get funding support through the pending Public Safety Trust Fund that is going through the state right now as well. That would require approval on their end, as well as making it into the state's budget. So that's pending, but we're hopeful that that would be a good fit as well to help with funding on this. Yes, ma'am.
For this, it says at the bottom, BOLOS, BOLOS.
Yes, that's be on the lookout.
Say it again.
Be on the lookout. So if we put out
okay.
for a stolen vehicle, a missing person, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, I didn't know what it was.
Are there any
I've
other
always
questions that I can
ABCs.
answer for you? Commissioner?
So if a local unit of government and their police or fire department chooses not to participate, how will that be addressed? So they don't want to have anything to do with this. They're happy with the way things are. How will they, not just the operational aspect, but also the funding for the whole system? How will that be resolved?
Yeah, they have to agree to participate because there are costs, right? With ongoing maintenance. So that's why Chris has drafted a MOU that each of the municipalities would have to agree for their agencies to participate in the system. We hope that we can get everybody on board. We've had pretty great support. I mean, the field agencies are really the ones that have brought this to us and been really hounding that they want this, they need this. Yes, sir.
Wayne, do you want to explain how that's going to work on
Yeah, sure. So between Caitlin and Chris, they've done a ton of the legwork on getting this ready. The MOU, you all as a group would have seen that type of partnership fairly recently. So if you think back over the last couple of years, we have rolled out access to the local units for oblique imaging, essentially access to the tool that the equalization department has. It's now spread out to the bulk of local assessors. Equalization worked for the better part of 2 years to line up memos of understanding with local units of government. We now have the bulk of the local units participating in that program, where they are formally agreeing to help offset the cost of the program, and in exchange, they then have digital access to the program. Similar concept here. We are trying to just recreate that process that worked pretty well. And it ensures that if between Caitlin's operation or Chris's operation, if we are in fact adding additional FTEs to run this, that we've got a written confirmation from the local units that they will live up to what they've said they're going to do. We have no doubt that they will, but we will then be able to have some documentation to show that as we add people, that we know long-term that we've got the funding in place to sustain the positions.
It should be noted, like in the MOU, we're dividing the cost out user-based. So it's based on the number of users that are accessing the system for the law enforcement side. Fire, because they're using tablets, it's based on their apparatus, how many vehicles they're accessing the system. Because it's user-based, it's going to be varied based on the size of the department. So if they have, 20 users at the department, they're going to be paying a larger portion, where a smaller, operation, water fleet, or some of the smaller agencies, they're only going to have to pay for their the number of users that they have.
And then
Commissioner
just
Tyler had a question. Go ahead, Brian. if you
just
need
very
to follow up.
quickly, I want to compliment these two. So in addition to getting these slides ready for you all, they've also made a real effort to try and sell this to members of the legislature. It is budget season. And this is the perfect time to be making the case for what kind of creativity is occurring at the local level. And this is the definition of creative and trying to share amongst the local units. So in the last couple of weeks, Caitlin and Chris have met with Representative Joey Andrews. Yesterday, they met with Senator Jonathan Lindsay. This afternoon, they'll meet with Senator Eric Nesbitt, just trying to make sure that the members of the legislature that should be keeping an eye on this area are keenly aware of this project. And hopefully, as they're casting votes, they'll be thinking about this potential. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Tyler,
Yep.
and then
Okay.
Commissioner Hinkleman, and
I have a
think
real quick question, and then I got a little bit longer question. When you said Niles, were you talking Niles City or Niles Township?
Niles City.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, we border Indiana. How compatible is this software and how does this work? If there's a fire or a police chase, how does this software, this CAD system communicate?
Yeah, we do not currently have CAD to CAD, so that would allow those call for services to communicate between the different larger entities, so the counties, or in this case, even across the border. In those instances, we utilize radio communication as really our backbone on that.
Commissioner Hinkleman.
Made this point some time ago, and I just, as long as we've got people that are going to use the practical application of it here, it seems to me that this is something that you would use when you're parked. Okay, it's visual, and so you need to see it. And so, we're trying to discourage the use of mobile devices that we're looking at. So as far as the practical application of this goes, this is something that you use on the fly when you're parked. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to distract people from getting there safely, to whatever's needed. So, but this seems like something that you've got to pay attention to and takes your eye off the windshield. So is this something that is used when you're parked? Is it something that you're using because there's two people in the car or truck, whatever it might be? So how does that work?
Yeah, I'll ask actually Chief Smigelski and maybe even the undersheriff to speak to that.
Wes, you just, there you go.
So it can be used when it's parked, yes. It would be more, for you guys, yes, that would be something that we should do, but that's not practical in our daily job. Most of our stuff is driving. We don't park a ton unless we're doing stuff. This is more towards I'll just give the example in 23 when we were involved in the shooting. I could have looked on CAD and seen who was coming, who was close, who was around, who was there. And I could have made a different decision and to back off more. Because when somebody says that they're right around the corner, that could mean they're 2 miles away. And I could see that. A lot of guys don't call out their traffic stops. And I think Caitlin and Chris kind of know that, Caitlin more so. A lot of people don't call out their traffic stops and things can go hell in a handbasket really quick. And at least I know where they're at. Same as in, Benton Harbor, Benton Township, things can go really quick at large crowd fights down at Silver Beach. Things can go down really quick. And sometimes people can't get to the radio. Sometimes people can't get to the phone or they can't, it just doesn't work. and they yell something on the radio, at least dispatch and other units know where they are now. We're probably one of the only, I would say, 7 or 8 counties in the whole entire state that does not have this. On the east side, I think pretty much every single department has it. It's effective. They use it all the time, not only for officer safety, but for everything else. So I do get your point where we're distracted, but we're distracted 24/7. I mean, we're looking all the time. Those guys are trained not to be distracted. They're trained how to look at the computer and look at the road. It's just the way it is. But for us, it's effective. We've been trying to get this for years. I think we're on the cusp of doing it. And if we can get the funding, I can pretty much say that most departments are going to be in on it and they're going to be there. And it's a huge safety issue. It's a huge, I would say, home run for the police here and for dispatch when things get really busy. People can do their own thing on the computer and we can be a lot more safe. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does.
I don't really have a good answer for that because
Well,
we're gonna be
you really-
distracted.
It's the same thing our guys are doing now.
We're
Our
gonna-
guys are doing it county, and this is just bringing it up.
You know, and I know that even in like my driving, I've had to resort to, for legal purposes, I've had to resort to using a headset. You know, when I'm on the phone, I have to, you know, I'm on the phone and I have to have a headset on there,
Right.
you know, and my life is busy also. And so, you know, I'm called to do a lot of different things at the same time, but I get tagged as it's illegal to, you know, to venture off and to use that device and, you know, we're
We get
condoning it here.
We get
so.
an exception for that. I know you don't want to hear that, but we're allowed to do that.
Sure, but
Because if anybody's not doing that.
I mean, it's a hard question to answer. I mean, I hope I answered it a little bit. I mean, I get your point that there is a distraction level to it, but that's what we train our guys for. I mean, that's all I can say.
I'm gonna turn to the undersheriff and see if he might have some words, because the county does have CAD currently that we're utilizing, as well as the city of Niles, which is what was referenced by Chris earlier.
That's correct. And thanks for this opportunity. I'm gonna date myself and take you back to when I worked the road initially. And when you got stuck in different areas, you got a stack of maps. And when you didn't know where you were going, you pulled off the street, and you dug out maps to figure out where that call was. It is very impressive to watch our deputies navigate technology today. There is a lot of, you know, technology that the new deputies have grown up with and they're used to using. The GPS routes in the car, the mobile CAD. I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, there was a murder near the midsection road of Lake Township in our area. And our officers had responded, and one of our South County officers noticed that the dispatchers had a call from the suspect's wife into 911 about where that suspect was located. And before that information even went out on the road, the officers in the South County near where that location was saw that information being entered and responded, and luckily apprehended the suspect without endangering any of the population there. So we're talking about, in some cases, seconds count. And I think this helps. And it's a younger generation that's used to using like a Garmin or a TomTom, we used to call them, that's on the screen that shows them where the call is so they can stop for their own safety before the call and walk in, get a better picture, that they aren't pulling up right in front of the, you know, scene. So there are a lot of advantages to the officers now and deputies and troopers. And this is something that technology, these individuals have grown up using and seem to navigate well, but we constantly, that is an issue. that's a lot for our responding deputies to do, to navigate, to be put under that kind of stress, to watch a screen updates, know where that is. So I think that's just a price of technology today.
Yeah.
But
I think it needs to be touched on. It's the, not necessarily, sorry, looking at the screen that offers all the benefit. Undershare, touch on it, GPS, right? The GPS are in the vehicle being tracked so that other people that have visual on the software know that you are. With this, we're also adding the mobile app. So any officer that has a cell phone can install this app on their cell phone, put it in their pocket. If they run out of the car on a foot pursuit, you're gonna be able to see where that officer is. The officer doesn't have to be looking at anything. They're not opening an app. They're still being tracked in the system so that dispatchers and supporting units will be able to see where they are. And that's a huge safety benefit.
yeah,
So
thank you. I know there were a few questions over here. I think Commissioner Ott had his hand up early. Okay, so Commissioner Warfel, and then I know Commissioner Tyler has another question.
Commissioner Warfel, just before you ask your question, I know that Chief Myers wanted to add something from the fire side.
I just thank you for that question because it's kind of the irony of the question is we're talking about safety, right? And then well, is that safe? On the fire side of things, it really shines for us because we don't run one person. So now we have somebody sitting in that officer's seat that can actually watch that CAD and see the updates that are coming in while we're driving on the road. Anything that's coming in about that address, problems that we've had there before. If there's an inspection where there's a safety issue, we know that before we get there versus, okay, now the guys are going in, now we're gonna look that up to do that. In addition to that, for managers, such as the fire chiefs, police chiefs, your higher officer levels, if we have a call and we're out of town, sometimes we have to make decisions from out of town. We hate to do that, right? Because we trust our people, but especially when you're dealing with volunteer departments where you never know who's where. We can make those calls and say, you know, I'm looking at CAD right now from my meeting up here in St. Joe, and I've got 2 guys going to that call. I need to make some decisions to be able to take care of that because they're driving and they can't do that. So from the fire side, we have more of an opportunity to do that. I know sometimes law enforcement will double up as well. So it's even more priceless then because now they have an extra person. So just my 2 cents on that. Thank you for the question.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Wolf.
Back to the funding. Because it involves police and fire, it should involve then the funding will involve all of the municipalities within the county.
Yes.
Depending on, of course, what the state does give us or doesn't give us. Any lack of funding.
Yes, that's correct. So that's part of what the MOU will lay out to who's responsible for what costs.
Okay, so
Yeah.
whether or not they have a police department, they will be affected.
Well, everybody, yeah, because we've got the sheriff and the state police that cover the unincorporated areas, those that don't have a local police department. And some of the local police departments cover multiple jurisdictions as well. So yes, everyone will be affected in that regard.
And for funding, everyone will participate in funding. That's the part I understand that the actual individuals will have the benefit of it, but will they help fund it?
If you're talking about like Berrien Township that doesn't have its own police department, is that kind of your question? If that township would provide funding? Not directly. That would be handled through the sheriff and the state police.
Do they have a fire department?
They are covered by Eau Claire Fire Department. So they've got multiple, the township, 2 townships and the village do that. So yes, in that regard, they would be providing funding for that.
Commissioner Tyler.
So what is the desired timeframe of this project?
Yesterday. Last
Now, what
year.
is the realistic time? Okay, desire is to get yesterday. What is the realistic time frame of this
Yeah,
project?
we have 10 law enforcement agencies that would really love to turn this on tomorrow if they could.
But what can we really do?
Well, it all comes down to funding. So, of course, the board has to support the project because it has just existing implications with support, county support pieces of it. Like even the mobility server, that's already been approved through our budget process, but you still have to approve the project. Excuse me. But then beyond that, it really comes down to where the funding can come from. I know that fire agencies are also.
So are we looking at a year, 2 years? 6 months?
I mean, we're hoping for within 6 months, but again, it depends on where the funding. will
And
come
is there a grant out there right now that we can apply for, or we're not?
There's not a current existing grant that we have identified that would satisfy this requirement. The Public Safety Trust Fund through the state, if that makes it all the way through and is funded, that would be applicable for this.
Could we go through a foundation?
Right, I see you're getting up. Do you want to add to that?
No, you're covering it the right way.
Okay.
It's a brilliant question.
So a foundation is something that we have not yet looked at. We have actively reviewed what the state has available. Public Safety Trust Fund appears to be the best fit. This is something that the dollars are available in Lansing. It is essentially going to take an act of the Senate to say, yes, proceed with the creation of the trust fund. Now, if the trust fund is rolled out and if it's funded the way that we believe it will be an immediate infusion of cash that would be available to Berrien County, but also to all of the local law enforcement agencies. So that's one that we have been pushing for. That's why we've talked directly with Representative Andrews, Senator Lindsay, and then this afternoon, Senator Nesbitt. Just trying to make clear to them, we've got a project that would provide benefit to 90% of the county, and it's one that we think would make a ton of sense as an application.
Now, we have utility companies, we have a nuclear plant, and this would be very beneficial to them. Would we approach them for any funding?
I'm not saying no to shaking as many trees as possible, but what I would say is we think that the cleanest route right now appears to be Public Safety Trust Fund. And what we've tried to do is over the last 3 weeks, we've tried to make an impassioned plea to the members of the legislature on here is a need and here is a project that would have a whole lot of benefit.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none. I want to thank you so much for taking the time, presenting the information. I want to thank you both for being here, sharing your perspectives from the work that you do, and thank you for the work you do. Chris, thank you for giving us the insight from the IT side of it, making us be aware that this is time and this is potential bodies that will need to be managing and updating and maintaining, and it can sometimes be a lot. Already when your staff has got a lot that it's already doing. And so Under Sheriff, thank you also for your perspective. And so this will be going through admin. There's a resolution. The memorandum of understanding, I think, has been reviewed by corporate counsel or will be reviewed by corporate counsel.
Will be reviewed by, I'm not sure if Thaddeus is given the thumbs up on that document yet.
Sure.
I received it yesterday.
Awesome.
I've not looked at it.
Understood. Commissioner Yarbrough, you had a comment or question?
I do. I would ask you just not to leave yet. This is a good room for me to ask what's going on at Silver Beach.
Sure.
Are these people from out of town? What race are they? Did they say, let's go here and fight when they could fight where they came from?
So
What?
we have the undersheriff here, and I will happily ask him to step forward to speak with you all.
Thank you for this opportunity too, and please call if you've got any concerns, either the sheriff or I. I can tell you, we've got open communication with the Parks Department. We're constantly in talks with St. Joe Department of Public Safety. We're taking a team approach to this. The challenges we face is that you just don't know what the weather is going to be like. So we're constantly watching the weather to see, is it a beach day? What's surprising, if we go back a couple weeks, that wasn't necessarily a nice beach day when a lot of the kids, when we dealt with them that were down there causing disturbances and fightings, were from South Bend to Elkhart, not the first time. The calls I received after that, when I talked to residents that were down there, talked about there was kind of a energy, like a negative energy in the air when the kids got down there. And we're talking that first time, kids that were around 21, 22, 23 years old, so kind of like younger adults.
Yeah.
Adults there. They said they could feel it down there, and several individuals I spoke with were concerned that the posturing and the negative behavior was going to spill into the area where our new playground was. And several people said we intentionally walked over and acted as a barrier between the younger kids on the cement in front of the concession stand were using profanity, twerking, and just kind of being disrespectful and kind of posturing among groups, and which led to a fight between a couple females. I want to say too, it's difficult because that group down there, that they are not cooperative with the police, so they don't want to press charges against the others. The individuals involved in the fight quickly leave the area, and we don't see certainly the cell phone video taken until after the fact, and then we've got to try to find individuals that can identify these individuals to charge them on the back end. Does that make sense? For disorderly conduct, because nobody sticks around to press charges, because really it'd be kind of a toss-up between who's, at fault. It would be a tough case to try because they're both doing things that contribute to this behavior. I ended up working the previous Sunday down there just to kind of give an experience perspective on things, and there weren't any problems. Another thing we're doing is like monitoring social media, because we've got lots of individuals out there that are putting together what looks like professional flyers that are saying, hey, there's a bikini contest or whatever down at Silver Beach, come down there on this day or that day. So we're constantly trying to schedule and efficiently schedule staff in case individuals show up for those events that aren't
Actual events.
actual events.
Right.
Exactly.
Nothing we did.
This last Sunday, there was a large group, and the individuals that we primarily dealt with were from Niles and Benton Harbor that weren't getting along. And again, they seem to be right on the line with disrespectful, inconsiderate behavior. It did lead to some fights. Individuals didn't stick around to make police reports to the police. We did address a couple disorderly conducts, one with a young adult again, but it appeared to be that the crowd this Sunday was a little younger, that included juveniles. And one of the juveniles we took was, I think was 14, but demonstrated an enormous amount of disrespect at 14 years old. Yeah, it's very disappointing when you watch this body camera footage of behavior that goes on down there. Again, for the abundance of caution, we closed the beach this time too, because we just are afraid that it's going to spill over to a younger child getting hurt that's not involved. And I took one call. I know some of my partners, Captain Yak, took, I think, 2 calls of individuals that were very upset that they came up from South Bend, spent, I think it was like $15 to go to the beach. The individual I spoke with had a park pass, and he says, hey, that's 45 minutes, an hour, that's a lot of planning. we were down at the beach, and primarily this behavior is occurring around the cement pad near the concession stand. And they were disappointed that the beach was then closed and they had to leave early. And they were down at the other end of the beach and it didn't. And I don't know how we say, hey, just this part of the beach is. It puts us in a tough spot, and we understand that level. It is such a beautiful place down there. I mean, it is just a gem of our county. And unfortunately, occasionally, it attracts individuals that you just don't want there. It's a challenge for staffing. Public safety is paramount for us. I think we're working with like the Parks Department. They're scanning social media. They have our numbers, and we're in a large group where they can text the minute they feel this negative energy down there and they think, hey, some individuals that need to be watched have just shown up. So we continue to work at this challenge, and I think that's just kind of where we are. Please let me know. I hope that and give some background, and I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you.
I appreciate that update, and I know we're getting long on time for a committee meeting to be able to go to that, but it's an important question that needed to be asked and addressed, and I appreciate that because you're right, we do have this beautiful resource for us to have people come to enjoy, and the fact that it's a handful of individuals making very poor choices, it's just making them realize that that is not the place that you need to come down there and act a fool for. And I appreciate the parks response, the sheriff's response, the city of St. Joe's response, and the partnership that's going on there to continue to monitor that to make certain that it is a safe place for families and others to go to enjoy. So appreciate the update. Are there any questions?
Don't we have an on-beach patrol there? You know how Waco Beach, Bridgman, on the weekends, they have 2 4-wheelers constantly up and down that small little beach. Do we do that here? I don't remember seeing.
We've got 2 deputies assigned down there.
Yeah, but obviously 2 is not always going to be enough, but do we have the ones where they're on the beach? The 4-wheelers?
Side by sides.
Oh,
We've
do they
got
have
2. Yeah, they've got access to 2.
Ah,
Now,
okay.
the beach can get busy where I'm not sure that we can get the side by sides through when it comes to like July 4th and some of these hotter weekends. But they're staged and down there, and that certainly helps us because it is a large area. I mean, when I was down there, I spent most of my time in the parking lots, and I think that gives you an opportunity to stop the alcohol use, the public use of marijuana before it even gets to the beach or outside the car there. So I think having a side-by-side is absolutely essential down there. St. Joe has some, they've got reserves helping us monitor traffic at the intersections. So, it's just a challenge.
Appreciate that.
And they come in all kinds of ways, like walk in, drive right and park, and then you look up and boom.
That's correct. It is open to the public. We're getting individuals that walk in, drive in, so it's a challenge.
The method that they get to the park is different for all of them, but when they're coming there, they're making a choice to be unruly, and we appreciate your response for that. So, commissioners, if there's no other questions, we're gonna thank the undersheriff for his time and for the update. I don't believe we have any public here for public comment. But if there's anyone of our guests that are here that wish to say anything, public comment time? Nope, good. All right, then we stand adjourned to go to our parent committees. Thank you.